right, if we can find our way back to our seats now. You know, today we're, of course, in the lectionary, and I have chosen to use our epistle passage, which is from the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verses 10 through 20. I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. This is a passage that will be familiar to a lot of you. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his power. Put on the whole armor of God so that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For our struggle is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, so that you may be able to withstand on that evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. Stand therefore, and fasten the belt of truth around your waist, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. As shoes for your feet, put on whatever will make you ready to proclaim the gospel of peace. With all of these, take the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Pray in the Spirit at all times and in every prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert and always persevere in supplication for all the saints. Pray also for me, that when I speak, a message may be given to me to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it boldly, as I must speak. Have any of you ever dealt with a bully? Maybe when you were in school, or maybe even as an adult. I have. For 6 years of elementary school, I had a bully. Her name was Melody Leeper, and I will never forget her. Now, one would think that with a glorious and lilting name like Melody, that her personality would be sweet and gentle, and her presence a welcoming breath of fresh air. But quite the contrary. Melody was a mean-spirited girl with a horrible disposition. She was a poor student and often a problem for teachers and a nightmare for substitutes. She was strong and stout and good in PE and sports, and she found the embarrassment and even humiliation of others to be amusing. She seemed to delight in inflicting physical pain and got her thrills from ruining the property of other people. And for 6 long years, Melody absolutely hated me with a passion that I have never seen exhibited before. In many ways, I was her antithesis. I was quiet and shy, a good student who worked really hard. I wore baby blue cat-eye glasses and usually a dress. I was very partial to pretty dresses, and I liked my shoes to match my dress whenever possible. I was skinny and uncoordinated, and usually the last person picked for a sports team, no matter what the team sport was, unless it just so happened that my best friend Donna Johnson was the team captain. Then she would pick me third from the last, not even next to the last, but third from the last, just to spare my feelings. And for that, I was always unspeakably grateful to her. She's still one of my best friends to this day. But no matter where I came in the lineup, Melody would go gunning for me. When we played basketball, she would pick me to guard, even though I could barely dribble the ball, and she was the best guard on the team. She would always be in my hands, or have her hands in my face, and grimace and say things to me, and trash talk, as the kids say. And then it would happen that she would just accidentally knock my cat-eye glasses right off my face, at which point she would do her best to step on them as well. And should I dare to stoop down to pick up those glasses, I would usually get an elbow in the nose, too. I had a couple of bloody noses during PE class. The worst, though, was during soccer season. She would seek me out, and this was back in the day, so we didn't wear shin guards for soccer. And so this was back in the old days, and we were out there on the soccer field, and she would search me out on the field, and she would kick my shins until they were bruised and throbbing, whether the ball was anywhere near me or not. At lunchtime, she would do something that my husband will tell you absolutely drives me crazy. She would put her fingers in my food. She would walk past and put her fingers in my food. Now, you have to know, I'm an only child, and I'm a little bit of a picky eater to begin with, but I'm a really prissy eater. So you touch my food, and believe me, I went hungry many, many days in elementary school. In short, I was the geeky girly girl, and for that, Melody had a particular vengeance reserved especially for me. All throughout grade school, she never let up. She was relentless in her pursuit of ways to torment me. Thankfully, her family moved after 6th grade, so we didn't carry this into middle school and high school. I can't even imagine what that would have been like. But the interesting thing is, even at her worst, even when my shins were swollen or my glasses were held together with tape, which they sometimes were, I always, on some level, felt sorry for her. I knew somewhere inside me, even as a child, that she was acting out of an insecurity and an anger and a resentment that I couldn't name or understand. But I understood instinctively that her hatred had nothing to do with me, because I'd never done anything to her. I didn't really even know her. Rather, her actions were rage directed against me, but it really had very little to do with me. I never told on her. I never went to the teacher or the principal or my parents or anyone else. And I was lucky enough to be raised in a home where I was valued and respected, and somehow, on some level, that fortified me and that comforted me. And interestingly, when Melody would mock me, when she would chide me or make fun of me, it was always for something that inside I knew was a good thing. When she called me the teacher's pet, there was part of me who was proud that the teachers liked me and knew I did a good job. When she called me a sissy girl or made fun of me for being nice, I was happy that I had been raised to have good manners, and I was actually proud of myself that even as a child, my mother could count on me to be well behaved in any situation. And when she made fun of my athletic prowess, or lack of, I knew down deep that none of that mattered to my real friends. And I knew I had real friends, like Donna Johnson, who liked me for the loyal friend I was and would pick me for their team, even though I was clearly a handicap to them. Melody was always chosen before me because she was a great athlete, but that was why she was chosen, not because she had a lot of friends. And on some level, I knew that that hurt her in some way. Now, thankfully, her abuse never got to the point that so much bullying does today that we hear about on the news and that kind of thing, where lives are risked and ruined and children are traumatized. And I don't want to diminish that kind of bullying. That's a whole different thing. But I will say that dealing with Melody and her onslaught of minor but annoying abuse made me stronger in a way. When she would attack, I would remember then, more so than any other time, who I am. I am a hardworking student. I'm a loyal friend. I'm a team player. St. Paul, in this letter to the church at Ephesus, reminds them and us that there will always be Melody Leapers in the world coming at us. They may have malice and intent to harm us, whether we deserve it or not. And that there will always be pressure from these powers and principalities even, not just individuals, but from society at large, to bow to the popular rather than being faithful to the teachings of Christ. There will always be the temptation to believe what others say about us, or to compromise ourselves in some way, just to avoid conflict, or just to give ourselves a temporary feel-good. Sometimes the intent is to harm us physically, sometimes emotionally, and oftentimes, I think, spiritually. For instance, we face an onslaught of advertising that is nothing more than a calculated attempt to create an unrealistic view of what beauty is. It's an attack on our view of self. Is it any wonder that young girls in our society have such an insecurity about their appearance when they see cover models and movie stars? I mean, I look at the cover of those magazines and I feel terrible about myself because, I mean, they're so beautiful and they're so thin and they're so perfect and their skin is so flawless. But you know what? That's an illusion designed to make us feel less beautiful than we are and to sell products. I want to show you something today. Jane, could you cut the lights back there, or somebody who's back by the door?